I'll never forget the way the morning light spilled through the kitchen blinds like nothing was wrong. The air smelled of fresh coffee and burnt toast. Ethan's cereal bowl clinked softly as he scooped up spoonfuls with half his attention on his math homework. My laptop buzzed quietly with work emails and overdue utility bills. It was an ordinary Tuesday, and I had no idea my life was about to shatter in the most humiliating way imaginable. The first sign came like a whisper. A notification blinked on my banking app. Your balance has dropped below the minimum threshold. That didn't make sense. That account was sacred, untouchable. Melissa and I agreed. No one touches Ethan's college fund. 6 years of saving. Every bonus, every tax refund, every sacrifice we made went into that account. There should have been over $75,000 in it. I clicked into the account, expecting a glitch, a clerical error. Banks screw up all the time, right? But then the screen loaded, and what I saw made my stomach turn cold. 0.0 zeros. No pending transactions, no record of withdrawal, just gone. I stared at the screen. My eyes burned. My breath caught in my throat. It had to be wrong. I hit refresh. Nothing changed. The number 0 stared back at me like a punch in the gut. Melissa. I called out, my voice shaky. But the house answered with silence. I stood up, my heart thudding louder with each step. Melissa. No keys on the hook. No purse on the counter. I bolted to the bedroom. The closet door creaked open, exposing a gaping hole where her suitcase used to be. Her half of the closet empty. Bare hangers swayed slightly. Her wedding ring sat on the dresser. Cold. Final. I checked my phone. Called her. Straight to voicemail. Again. And again. Each beep after the tone was like a nail in my chest. That's when Ethan wandered into the room, munching on an apple, his backpack slung over one shoulder, like it was any other school day. "Where's Mom?" I asked, trying not to let my voice crack. He shrugged, unfazed. She said she had to go somewhere. Somewhere. That word hit like a knife. I tried to breathe, but it felt like the walls were closing in. I rushed back to the kitchen, opened the joint credit card account. My fingers trembled over the keyboard. And there it was, transaction after transaction. Miami. Hotels. Restaurants. Spa packages. A Louis Vuitton store. First-class airline tickets. My wife. The woman I trusted with everything. She didn't just leave. She ran. And she took every damn cent of our son's future with her. I wanted to scream, cry, punch the walls, but I couldn't. Ethan was still standing there, watching me with those big brown eyes, his innocence, or what was left of it. He stepped closer, placed a small hand on my forearm and said, "It's okay, Dad." I fixed it. His voice was soft, unshaken. I stared at him completely wrecked and tried to understand what he meant. Fixed it. Did he even understand what just happened? Did he think this was just another one of Dad's bad days? I knelt down beside him, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "Buddy, what do you mean?" He just smiled. That strange, confident smile that didn't belong on a 10-year-old's face. "You'll see," he said. Then he walked off toward the garage as if nothing had happened. And I stood there, surrounded by Bill's betrayal and a hollow in my chest I couldn't fill. The days that followed blurred together like smeared ink on wet paper. I was a ghost, drifting through my own house, sleeping in fragments, eating out of habit, and staring too long at nothing. Every sound made me flinch. Every quiet moment reminded me that Melissa wasn't coming back, that she had gutted us and vanished. But Ethan, he didn't break. Not even close. He still woke up at 6:30 sharp, got dressed, brushed his teeth, and packed his lunch like it was just another week. He still asked me if he could have ice cream after dinner and whether we could go to the park on Sunday. And all the while, I kept waiting for the dam to break, for the anger, the tears, the questions. They never came. Instead, Ethan began spending more time in the garage, hours, sometimes into the night. I assumed he was messing with his Lego robotics kits or building another RC car. He'd always been obsessed with tech. He got that from me. But lately, there was something different. One evening, I walked past the garage and noticed light spilling from underneath the door. The low hum of electronics, a soft click, click, click of a keyboard. I opened the door a crack. Inside, Ethan was standing at the workbench completely focused. A laptop in front of him streamed lines of code I didn't recognize. On the wall above him, a whiteboard was covered in flowcharts, diagrams, strings of numbers and names. Melissa's name was circled 3 times in red. I stepped in stunned. "Ethan, what is all this?" He jumped quickly, trying to block the whiteboard with his small frame. "Nothing. It's for school." "School," I echoed. "Are they teaching 4th graders how to build surveillance gear now?" He turned red, but didn't answer. "Buddy," I said softly, stepping closer. "You can talk to me." He didn't look at me, just shrugged and mumbled, "You wouldn't get it." Then he gathered his tools and slipped past me, leaving me alone with the chaos he had created. I stared at that whiteboard for a long time. Melissa's bank account numbers, password guesses, VPN routing paths, offshore shell corporations. It didn't look like a school project. It looked like a plan. The next day I tried to act normal. Tried to convince myself it was just a phase. That maybe he was processing the loss in his own way. But something wasn't sitting right. That night, I heard him whispering in the kitchen. I tiptoed down the hall. He was on the phone. "Did you get it?" he asked, voice low and urgent. I sent the IP trail. "Make sure they see the transaction history." "No, don't use that account. Use the shadow one." I stepped into the room. He froze. The phone snapped shut. "Who was that?" I asked, trying not to sound like I was interrogating him. "Nobody," he said too quickly. "Just a friend. A friend." He shrugged again and ducked away, disappearing up the stairs before I could press him further. Later that night, I stood outside his room listening. Silence. Then the soft clack of keys. I wanted to confront him, demand answers, but something held me back. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe fear. Or maybe it was that small, irrational voice in my head, whispering, "What if he really does know what he's doing?" And then came the turning point. I was sipping burnt coffee by the window when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. "Michael." The voice on the other end cracked like a dry branch. "Melissa." I said nothing. "Michael, please," she whispered. "You have to help me." My grip on the mug tightened. "Help you," I said, venom in every syllable. "You emptied our son's future and disappeared. And now you want help?" "It's Derek," she cried. "He's gone. Just vanished. All his accounts are frozen. So are mine. The bank's locked me out. I have nothing. The police they're asking questions." "Michael." "About me. I think someone turned me in." The room spun. My knees weakened. I set the mug down and leaned on the counter to steady myself. And then, from the living room, Ethan looked up from his tablet, calm, steady, like he'd been waiting for this moment. "Who's that?" he asked. "It's your mother," I said, voice low. Ethan stood. walked over, held out his hand. Put it on speaker, Ethan. I put it on speaker, Dad. There was no arguing. I tapped the screen and set the phone on the counter. Melissa, I said, you're on speaker. Ethan's here. There was a pause, then a shaky, softened voice. Sweetheart, it's Mommy. Save it. Ethan cut in his voice, sharp and emotionless. I don't want to hear it. Ethan, please, she begged. I know I hurt you. I know I made a mistake. You didn't make a mistake, he snapped. You made a choice. You betrayed us. You stole from me. From your own kid. And now you're crying because it backfired. That's pathetic. The silence that followed was thunderous. I'm your mother, she whispered. I love you. No, you don't, he replied. If you did, you wouldn't have left. You wouldn't have picked Derek over us. And now you're paying the price. Ethan, don't worry, Mom, he said, with a smile that chilled my blood. I already did. Then the line went dead. I didn't move. I couldn't. My hand was still resting on the phone, my fingers curled around nothing. My son, my 10-year-old, had just dismantled his mother over speakerphone with the cold precision of a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. Not a flicker of hesitation, not a crack in his voice. He turned away from me without a word and walked back to the living room, sat down, and resumed tapping on his tablet like it was just another Tuesday afternoon. I stood in the kitchen trying to breathe. Later that evening, when the house had fallen into that strange, heavy silence that only follows emotional explosions, I found Ethan in the garage again. The door was unlocked this time. I pushed it open slowly and stepped inside. The whiteboard had expanded. More diagrams, more data, IP addresses, flowcharts, timelines. On the workbench, his laptop screen flickered with what looked like a string of bank transfers, legitimate institutions all linked in a series of quick, quiet reversals. Ethan glanced at me, then swiveled his chair so the screen was visible. Want to see? He asked, like he was about to show me a new video game. I stepped forward, still unsure what was real and what I was dreaming. Remember how she drained my college fund? He said, his voice light, almost cheerful. Well, I figured if she could take it, I could take it back. I blinked. What are you talking about? He tapped the screen, and my heart nearly stopped. There it was. The full $75,000 restored, sitting in a new account under my name. Not just sitting, though. Invested, efficiently, aggressively. You hacked your mother, I whispered. Technically, he said I just used the password she saved on her phone. She reused it. A lot. For everything. My knees buckled slightly, and I sat on a stool beside him. Ethan, that's illegal. So is stealing from your kid, he said without missing a beat. I didn't know what to say to that. I should have felt something: anger, fear, disbelief. But what I felt was something dangerously close to awe. He wasn't done. Derek had a lot of accounts. Ethan continued, his fingers gliding over the keyboard. Fake names. Shell companies. Classic scammer playbook. I tracked them all. Reported him. Sent the whole package to the FBI's cybercrimes unit. With evidence, transactions, voice recordings. You reported him. My voice barely made it past my lips. He nodded. And I made sure Mom was included. She helped spend the money. That's complicity. Ethan, I said, finally finding my voice. You don't understand what you've done. You could get her arrested. She arrested herself, he said flatly. She chose this. She chose him. Not me. Not you. I wanted to argue, but the words dissolved in my throat. He was right. He was brutally, terrifyingly right. And Derek, I asked, what do you mean he's gone? Ethan shrugged. He's fine, just broke, and trapped. Every account frozen. Every alias burned. Nowhere to hide. The authorities will find him. Or he'll come to us. Either way, he's done. I stared at him. Truly stared, this 10-year-old boy who had just turned the tables on two adults and a criminal enterprise with a laptop and a grudge. His face was calm. His eyes sharp. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked softly. "Why didn't you let me handle it?" He looked at me then, and something in his expression twisted my gut. "Because I knew you wouldn't do anything," he said. "You were too sad, too tired. You froze. Someone had to stop them." My heart cracked. He wasn't wrong. I had been paralyzed, swallowed whole by grief and confusion. And while I was drowning, my son had stepped forward calm and calculating and built a plan to protect us. But at what cost? Later that night, I sat awake staring at the ceiling, playing the entire conversation over and over in my head. Ethan had done something most adults couldn't pull off. But the part that haunted me wasn't how smart he was. It was how cold. The next morning, my phone rang again. Melissa. I didn't want to answer. But some part of me, the masochistic part, needed to hear what she had to say now that the walls were closing in. What now? I snapped, not even trying to hide my disgust. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Michael, the police, they're freezing everything. My accounts, my car lease. I can't access anything. They say I'm part of Derek's crimes. Aren't you?" I asked. She didn't answer. "You wiped out your son's future for a fantasy," I said, each word sharp as broken glass. "Now you want sympathy? I didn't know it would get this bad," she whispered. "No. You just didn't care?" There was silence. Then she said, "I made a mistake." I laughed bitterly. "No, Melissa. You made a decision. Over and over again. And now you get to live with it." "I have nowhere else to go," she said. "Please, Michael. Please. For Ethan, I just need help." "Don't you dare say his name," I growled. "You don't get to invoke him now. He's the reason I'm not already broken." She sobbed. But I didn't care. Not anymore. "We don't need you," I said, voice hard and final. "Not anymore." I hung up, and when I turned around, Ethan was standing in the hallway, watching me. "Did you let her off?" he asked. "No," I said quietly. "I didn't." He nodded once. "Good. She doesn't deserve it." The house felt different after that call. Not quieter, just emptier. Like something heavy had finally been cut loose, but what remained was a hollow echo of what used to be. I wanted to believe that was the end of it. Melissa was out of our lives. Derek was a ghost with no money and no way to strike back. Ethan had restored what was taken. We should have been safe. We should have been free. But peace, I was learning, is a fragile lie. It started with a number I didn't recognize. I answered out of habit, my voice tired. "Hello. You think you're clever, don't you?" I froze. "Derek," I said, heart jumping to my throat. He laughed, low, venomous, unstable. "Your little brat ruined everything. My accounts, my reputation, my entire life. You think you can do that and walk away?" I moved toward the living room, my eyes locking onto Ethan, who sat cross-legged on the floor, assembling a model car with surgical precision, completely unfazed. "You brought this on yourself," I said coldly. Derek's voice turned sharp. "You don't know who you're dealing with. I know where you live. I know where your son goes to school." The world tilted. "You stay the hell away from my boy," I warned, voice trembling with rage and fear. "Or what?" he sneered. "Gonna send your little hacker after me again." I hung up before he could say another word, but my hands were shaking. I turned to Ethan. He was already looking up at me. That was him, wasn't it? He asked. I nodded. He's threatening us. Ethan didn't blink. Let him. Ethan. This isn't a game, I said, kneeling down in front of him. He's dangerous. We need to call the police. They won't do anything until it's too late, he said firmly. But I can. Ethan. I've got this, he said, then stood and walked straight to the garage, locking the door behind him. That night was the longest of my life. Every creak in the house made my stomach knot. Every car that passed outside had me holding my breath. I sat in the living room with a bat beside me and stared at the front door like it might come alive. Past midnight, the garage door opened. Ethan stepped out, calm, collected, tired. It's done, he said. I stood. What's done? He handed me his tablet. On it, I saw Derek's burner phone hacked, tapped, recorded. Every threatening message, every call. Then he showed me something else, a GPS trace. You tracked him. He nodded, spoofed his phone, made him think he was still secure. While I streamed everything to the FBI field office. Ethan, I whispered, do you even realize what you've done? I stopped him, he said simply. He can't hurt us now. I didn't know whether to hug him or cry. But the next morning proved just how far Derek was willing to go. A crash. Shattered glass. I ran to the front room and found a brick on the floor. The window, destroyed. A note wrapped around the brick in sloppy, angry handwriting. This isn't over. Ethan found it first. Picked it up. Read it. Crumpled it into a ball and tossed it in the trash like it was nothing. Maybe we should leave, I said carefully. Lay low for a while. He looked at me calm as ever.